Welcome back to the Psychological Paradigm Shift podcast. I hope you found the last episode informational and helpful. I'm Ed Rieger, your host. I'm the creator of the Psychological Paradigm Shift movement. You can find the entire layout of the movement on my website, psychologicalparadigmshift.com. On the website, you're going to learn what the mission of the movement is, the books I've written are going to release, the laws I am beginning to release now, the podcast episodes, and you'll be able to follow my political activities when we launch. Always remember, I am only providing my personal opinions based on my experiences and education on psychological topics. Tonight we will be talking about mental illness in a very blunt, transparent manner. The topics may be disturbing to some, and it's never my intent to hurt anyone, only to share my ideas and thoughts. Tonight we're going to cover funeral arrangements and the questions you may want to ask your potential romantic partners. I think some of these questions may be the most enlightening of all questions you'll be asking your potential partner of all the categories. Because remember, the arc of the relationships with the mentally ill between parents, siblings, grandparents, uncles, aunts, can be very long. But eventually they'll get to this point. Someone will pass away, and seeing their behavior at that time is going to be critical for you. This is a topic that most people I have known do not and will not deal with, no matter what. Final arrangements of a loved one is an extremely difficult, emotional, and psychologically devastating experience. It can be very loving, compassionate, and healing for some, and can be the defining moment when it comes to the ending of that relationship for others. I worked in the funeral industry for 10 years. I've helped a knowable amount of families with the final arrangements of their loved ones. And two things became very clear over those years. When it comes to this moment in the history of a family, there's no hiding of feelings. If they loved each other and were part of each other's lives, right up until the final moments, it shows. If the family was disconnected, unconcerned, unloved, and disposable, it shows. The funeral industry in the late 1990s started to go through a major paradigm shift of their own. I experienced the reality that traditional funerals and burials were disappearing. And the majority of people were turning to cremation without a cemetery plot or headstone. This rocked the funeral industry to its core. The company I worked with was on the Fortune 500 list one day and not on the next day. That's what you call a paradigm shift. The reason was the revenue from a traditional funeral was substantially greater for a traditional funeral compared to a cremation service. I started to see a real breakdown of families not wanting a headstone or grave that they were going to visit while working through the grieving process. They were becoming less concerned with ever having a place to show respect or to celebrate their loved ones' lives. When making the final arrangements, I was able to see the clear distinction of the mentally healthy and the mentally ill at that point. The mentally healthy would come from all over the country, sometimes from all over the world, to support and help each other make the final arrangements for their loved ones. The mentally ill would not even come across town to help their families. If they did, they would come into the funeral home and they would bicker, throw guilt on each other, complain about the cost, passive aggressively block siblings from making simple decisions. And of course, they would bring their spouses, who would cause even more chaotic issues once they gave their opinions at the table. Or the mentally ill families would just be one person making the arrangement by themselves with no one supporting them at all. And it didn't matter if they were making arrangements as 19-year-olds for a baby that lived one day, or a parent that lived to be 100. The family abandonment was on full display. There was no love, no compassion, no psychological or emotional support, just sadness and a moment of lost potential for everyone involved, because mental illness has no mercy. Let's get started with the questions. Has any of your parents or grandparents passed away? Me personally, I never met any of my grandparents and never attended any of their funerals. Were you the primary facilitator of the funeral arrangements, or did other family members like siblings or parents assist you? Did you go to the funeral home alone, or did other family members go with you? Did the family member who passed, did they pre-plan any arrangements, or was everything left to the family to make? Did they choose direct cremation or traditional burial? Was there any headstone placed? Do you ever visit the grave or marker of your loved ones? Do you and your siblings ever visit together? How often? When was the last time you visited together? Do you have any cemetery arrangements around your loved ones? Are you planning in the future to purchase space around your loved ones? Have you ever talked to your children about your funeral and cemetery arrangements? Why not? Have you made your funeral arrangements and paid for them? Have you left any instructions for your final arrangement and set aside funds for the cost? Now, you'll be able to see here after these questions how much they participated with each other during final arrangements, or how much lack of preparation they've ever considered to try to relieve pain and suffering for loved ones who are left that day, sometimes in total shock, complete chaos, to have to make those arrangements for them. And if they had financial resources and didn't make the arrangements, that really speaks volumes as to how much they were concerned with any of their family members' psychological well-being. And so this can be a really big red flag for you to know, what's this family like? What's their history like when it comes to these kind of arrangements? Will they be there at the final moment for you? That's a big question. And families who have mental illness, if they're not there for each other, are they really going to be there for you? So these questions are very critical for you. Kind of unpleasant for some, but I think need to be asked. Okay, let's go ahead and end there. Next time we'll cover social and religious activities. I want to thank you for sharing time with me tonight. I hope this information was helpful to you as we progress through our psychological paradigm shift. Remember, you can go to the website, psychologicalparadigmshift.com, and I will post updates when I have them, and you can sign up to receive future information. I look forward to next week's episode. Take care of yourselves.